Aloha, I'm Asia Iyer, and we're here tonight with another Maui Pono Network 2026 election cycle interview. We thank you for joining us. And Maui Pono Network does these long form interviews. We hope that you've enjoyed and been informed by the previous interviews that we've done this election cycle. We think this is unique because you get a chance to really hear long, detailed answers from the candidates. And hopefully it gives you more insight into what really drives them, what motivates them. Don't forget to go onto the website and look at the other interviews. We put highlights there on the website of questions and answers, so you can skip to those, or you can watch the whole interview. But we do not edit out answers. That's another thing that makes Maui Pono Network unique. Please make sure to share these with your neighbors and friends. Keep the conversation going and stay an informed voter. Again, my name is Asia Iyer. I am volunteering with Maui Pono Network. The other interviewers tonight we have are Lucienne Dene and Rita Ryan. They are community activists, and we're so grateful to have them. All right, now I am so privileged to introduce our candidate for this evening, and she's a well-known community activist. She's a boots on the ground person. She's been in council for many terms, and that's Tamara Paltin. And so I don't think she needs much of an introduction, but she's been serving in the county council now for, I want to say, has it been 5 terms? 4 terms.
This will be my fifth term if elected.
Fifth term. Yeah. So she is, even though she is young, she is also a veteran of the county council. So we're very privileged to have her this evening. I'll start asking the first question and then we'll go through the interviewers. And Tamara, it is being a public servant and a member of the council is a very challenging and time consuming position. And you're also involved in a lot of community groups and really involved in the Lahaina recovery. I would like to start off these questions with just asking you, like, what keeps you going? How did you decide to run again? What's your motivation? Like, what gets you out of bed?
Well, when I started down this path, I did make a commitment for the full allotment, which is like a 10-year commitment, 5 2-year terms. Especially with the COVID and the fire hitting Lahaina particularly hard. Just want to fulfill that time commitment because there's so much work to be done in the recovery of Lahaina and in the visioning of how we come back as well.
Great, thank you. Lucienne, go ahead.
Mahalo. Well, thank you for making this time. I know all of you on the council are really, really busy right now with all of the natural disasters popping up. So, what do you think uh, is the most important thing in your district that you're hearing now that the council needs to address? And do you have a vision of how it should be addressed?
It's pretty much everything all at once. We definitely need housing. We can't get the housing without water. We can't get the water without seaworms starting to approve the water use permit applications. There's the rebuild of the economic areas, which, is primarily in the SMA, in the historic district, which has, layers of oversight because of the sensitive nature. But really it's just how we move forward. People need better paying jobs to pay for the increased cost of living. There's a lot of fear as the temporary housing situation transitions from either FEMA to county, or the disaster case management program transitions from state to county. There's a lot of pros and cons with that the county can get the information from the disaster case management program that they need to then build towards, or needs that they need to prepare for. Because previously, when the state was running the program, we didn't get the data that of all the needs of the people with case managers. So it's just a lot going on, and sometimes we don't recognize the wins because there's so much more else to do.
Mm.
Um, the shoreline area and the rebuild is definitely a big issue because we want to rebuild safer. We want to rebuild for the long haul, and being next to the shoreline, you know, it was a little ironic that Mala Restaurant survived the fire because prior to that, boats had gone through the front window. In this last storm, part of the roof came out. And so it's those kind of issues that maybe we don't want to deal with in a rebuild if we can avoid it. A lot of the Mackay side of Front Street was over submerged state lands already because it was underwater. And then, there's also the decision to defend Front Street because it has a lot of our underground infrastructure utilities, like the water lines, the sewer lines, and things like that. So then, does it make sense to build back on the Mauka side of Front Street? What about more density when already people had a hard time to escape as it was? So there's just a lot to navigate, and people on both sides of the issue, right after the fire, everyone was pretty much on the same page that we needed to get people's basic needs met. And the further out we go from the fire, the more differences in opinions that makes it difficult to navigate a path forward. But it's just really important to hear out all sides and choose the pathway forward that's the safest, makes the most sense for the most people, and contributes to a better quality of life for our people.
Mahalo for that thoughtful answer. I'm going to pass you over to Rita.
Aloha, Tamara. Thank you for joining us today.
Mhm.
Nice to see you again. As a council member, where do you believe that the county fell short before or after the fire? And what have you done to hold the administration accountable?
You know, the emergency management agency, like right during the fire and shortly thereafter, just kind of imploded. So we're in a much better place, and I don't want to take credit for that. It was definitely a group effort of that. We need real leadership that didn't just get their certifications on paper, that had real world experience. Um, I feel a lot better with former Battalion Chief Amish Lonokailua Hewitt at the helm because he was a training uh policy director of the fire department. Um, I worked beside him in the 2018 fire when he was the battalion chief, and he pulled in our ocean safety battalion chief to help him during the fire. So that is one of the things that is being in the process of being implemented going forward, instead of having like just one battalion chief having two on. So, well, one could be driving, the other one can be working the radios and working as a team in that fashion. We've put funding to it, we've allocated positions, but it's still kind of in the build out phase of it, because it takes time to establish the position, and you can't just pick a firefighter off the street to fill that. You have to move people up, and as you move people up, then you have to train new classes and things like that. So it's in the process of being built out. But um also, the funding and completion of the new Emergency Operations Center. I'm not sure if you've ever been to our old Emergency Operations Center, but it's very cramped. You can't receive cell phone calls. We'll often see our emergency management agency staff in the parking lot because there's no cell phone reception in the basement where they're at. They don't have parking there. So I mean, we've come a very long way since 2023. I've had input into that, having worked as a former first responder, but by no means I would attribute myself for all the changes. It was definitely a group effort of which, I was just a small cog. But also some of the things that we're looking into is more escape evacuation routes. I know in Paia they have done like some evacuation drills. It's just taking a lot longer than everyone would like to happen because as part of the rebuild, there's we could we could take 10 to 20 years and get it as safe as we could and underground everything and make all these evacuation routes, but we wouldn't be building for the same people anymore because people wouldn't be able to survive that amount of time without housing. And so it's really a balance of coming back fast so people can have a place to live, go back to their jobs and things like that, and not building back exactly the same because if nothing changes, then that puts us right back to where we were on August 8th, 2023. So, I pushed for, and the administration responded a series of meetings, especially with the Kuhua camp or the Mill Camp neighborhood, where um, about half of the fatalities in the fire occurred. And we held 6 different meetings with property owners about, if they would support widening the roads, you know, in order to go full underground in that neighborhood, it would take like minimum of 48 feet. Some of the road widths weren't even 20 feet. And some of the lots were 3,000 to 5,000 square feet. So if you're a corner lot with 3,000 square feet lot, on a 20-foot roadway or less than a 20-foot roadway, you're talking about people not being able to come back. So, you know, we pretty much heard the feedback wasn't strong enough to start trying to eminent domain people's lots. And so we looked at specific areas to increase ingress and egress from that neighborhood so that there are more than one way in and one way out. What ultimately happened at Kukua camp was a fenced-in area and a down tree, trapping many of the residents from getting out. So we feel like by increasing the ingress egress to that neighborhood, there will be more options. They've run Genesis evacuation software and Ladris AI to model evacuations to be more methodical because if everybody goes onto the road at the exact same time, it'll just jam things up and nobody will be able to get out. But if you can learn the app, evacuate by zone, the modeling shows that people would have got out in time if the situation were to repeat. There is issue because it is dependent on having like Wi-Fi and power, but the Watch Duty app, which comes out of the US continent, needs very, very little Wi-Fi, and it will often work when you have just text messages going. There's still a lot to configure around that because then you'd have to know what zone you're in and when to evacuate and things like that. But it's definitely something that we're refining, and I don't think you will ever be finished preparing for disaster. It's a
Right. It's an ongoing
circular
process.
exercise. Yeah.
Right. So on that note, you had mentioned about sort of beefing up the fire battalions, having 2 battalion chiefs. What is the timeline for that? Is there a timeline in place for that?
Um, I believe in the budget before last, we started with the creation of the positions per the fire chief's rollout. So, in working with personnel, we've experienced like a lot of times you might have to do a reorganization with the union for something like that. So
Mhm.
I think it was in last budget cycle and because it's just the creation of the positions, it didn't cost, there wasn't a cost to it yet. So we're working on the fire department's timeline, however long it takes for them to go through it, whatever reorg that they might need to do to create the position, and then, to fill it by interview
They don't have a
promotion.
date, a solid date to deliver this by?
No, because a lot of it is not only in their control.
Okay.
That's it's a lot of it depends on negotiations with the union if you're gonna do a reorg, and sometimes it can go back and forth, back and forth. But
Right,
the process has been started, and we're letting the chief lead that because he's part of the process that needs to, like, the council doesn't get involved in
right,
negotiating with the
right.
union or telling personnel that. But once they create the position, then it'll be back in our court. They gotta have a full recruit class to fill from the bottom up,
Right.
so
And then regarding the ingress and egress situation, so you described the problem very well. Is there a timeline on that as well, or is it just evolving?
some of the new evacuation routes are going to take longer than others. I think there is one parcel that has been purchased on Aki Street that was kind of a block to the street going all the way through. So that has been completed. There was a new purchase of the Pioneer Mill property. And so I think they're aware and willing to let us eminent domain a way out to like Komomai, Keawe Street from Mill Camp. I've heard the Dickinson extension has been a little bit held up with the school plans from Kamehameha schools, like how that road network is gonna happen. So they're in various phases of occurring. I think the first one to have been purchased, I don't believe they had to go through the eminent domain process, was this one parcel that was blocking Aki Street to go all the way through and then connect out as another way out of Mill Camp subdivision. So they're in various stages of the process, depending on when and how the county can acquire these lands, but they've kind of been identified as additional routes. They did want to also extend through to Papalawa, which goes right through the Mill Street property. So I'm not sure if they're willing to allow for that, but I heard that the negotiations were okay and ongoing.
Wonderful. Thank you. You're very knowledgeable about all of these. I appreciate your detailed answers. And I'm going to pass the next question on to Lucian. No,
Asia.
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 Asia's
Asia.
next. Yep.
Asia's next.
So, Councilmember Paltin, I have been able to participate in and watch many council meetings, and something that's always really impressed me about you as a council member in council meetings and in committee meetings is that you ask very detailed, intelligent, it seems well researched questions. And you also listen to constituents. And something else that I appreciate is you're incredibly magnanimous, meaning that you don't seem biased against people when people comment or when people bring issues. You seem to take everyone's issues, and I really respect those. I've always I've always respected your attitude towards meetings and coming prepared and listening to everyone. I'm wondering how you balance that. Like you give very detailed answers on these things, so this might be a harder question for you to come to. But like, how do you as a council member balance those things? How do you do those well? And then, what if you're elected again? Would you like to improve in this upcoming session as a council member?
Hmm. I mean, I always need to be just doing something with my hands kind of in order to absorb what's going on. If I were forced to just sit there and listen, I don't know that I would absorb it as well. Um I guess I have a fear of appearing uneducated, and so I do like to try and prepare for the meetings. I figure, that's the job, that's what you're paid to do, at least for the meetings, 8 to 4:30 or whatever. Um, Sometimes it's easier if I'm really interested or passionate about the subject matter, obviously. Um, but I guess it's just part of the job. I have been a county worker for, I guess, going on 28 years. So the probably the background knowledge of the county helps me to try and figure out what's going on. Um, in the upcoming 2 years, I've had some projects that have had to fall by the wayside because of COVID occurring or the fire occurring. And so I'm trying to just make sure the work started on those projects are able to finish up before my time is over. Um, One of the things that I had was working or two of the things that I was working on right before the fire was how to get more transparency on sole source procurements because as we know that was one of the big corruptions of environmental management with Stuart Stant and been kind of working a little bit with the auditor and corp counsel about what would be the path forward on that. And the auditor showed me one of the corrupt contracts from Milton Choi Stewart's that time. And he was saying, you don't look at this and can you find the corruption? And I looked at it and I was like, just looks like a contract, so how would we be able to identify that occurred even if we pulled all the sole source contracts? And then talking to finance, they're like, well, don't slow down the process or people won't get paid. And so we've been thinking about the possibility of just a public log because like if they say if a corrupt person were to say, oh, these are the only people that make sand filters, so we gotta go with them, and they're gonna quote us a price of $15,000 per sand filter. Maybe there's someone else out there in Hawaii or any place that says, they're not the only ones that make sand filters. We can make sand filters for 5 grand per or something. So it's kind of like, I guess, crowdsourcing extra eyes on contracts that we may not know anything about, but somebody out there like bidding on it or wanting to do business with the county might know about better. Um, One of the other projects I had picked up from Kelly King that we were working on right before the fire occurred was doubling the amount of EV chargers required per parking space, similar to like how Hawaii Island did it, but we ran into a number of issues and still refining that bill. Um, Also working on some surveillance, like police kind of surveillance camera legislation that would set up guardrails. It just came out actually, the first 2 out of 3 that I've been working on came out on this last council meeting agenda. So it's Bill 112 and 113 on Tuesday's agenda. And from the research I've done, the county hasn't contracted with Flock as a company yet. And so trying to put in legislation about contracts that the county enters into with a third party that they're not allowed to sell or share our private data with a third party entity unless it's in accordance with I think it's called 28 CFR Part 23 or Hawaii Revised Statutes, especially Act 141, which has to deal with immigration and things like that. Also putting guidelines on the use of facial recognition softwares. Um, so the first one was I mean, I guess both are kind of in regards to license plate readers, also about like, how long the data can be stored and who can have access through it, like when it becomes archived. We don't want private citizens to use public technology or systems to harass or spy on the general public either. So, creating a process on which this data can be archived and then used as evidence. And then at that point, it's discoverable and things like that. So the third one, because of the storm, we didn't get it on the agenda, but requesting for Chair Lee to direct refer it. And then hoping to be able to possibly address that issue before we go into the South Maui Community Plan, which we're in the process of setting that up. We're looking to kick it off on September 14th in the evening in South Maui. Just start off with an overview of the plan from the planning department and hear from the community in South Maui that evening as the first meeting. And then maybe another time a site visit where I'm requesting kind of budget review for the South Maui Community Plan, where my colleagues would give me 4 weeks minus the council meetings, and Gabe Johnson planned a site visit to Kaho'olawe, so leaving that day off to accommodate him. But we're probably gonna be live in South Maui at least twice. Those won't be hybrid meetings. Those will be prioritizing the community that's in South Maui. And then the rest of the time, it'll probably be in the chambers, hybrid meetings. I've started reviewing the documents on that and kind of plan to go in the order of section 24315. 2 is policy, and we're the policy body. So figure start off there. 4 is implementation, 3 is growth, and then 1 and 5, and then have a few days for revisits. But as soon as we close out a section, I don't want to go back until the very end when we do any kind of revisit. So those are, I guess, some of the things I got up on deck as what I'm working on, I guess.
I again, I appreciate your answer. I don't think anyone ever listens to you and thinks that you're uneducated. Your answers are always incredibly intelligent, and you're able to remember so much. It's really impressive. And I want to go back to the beginning of your answer too, where you said, I work really hard because I this is my job. It's your humility there that is so touching because uh, I really feel from your answer that you feel like you're a servant to the people that you're serving, and that you want to do the best that you can. So I really appreciate that. And I have some more follow-up questions, but I'm going to turn it over to Lucienne, and I'll come back to those when we get back. And then Rita after Lucienne.
Mahalo. Well, I'm going to try to be a little directed here. You mentioned water playing a big role in future recovery in West Maui. And of course, we all know that there's several initiatives underway to purchase private systems in West Maui. So I'm wondering, do you support or oppose or want to see certain things tweaked about Maui County's acquisition of the West Maui water systems from West Maui Lands and Maui Land and Pine? And if if you could just give a little background on how you think they would or would not help.
Well, for the one that we can speak most about is the Laniapoku Water Company, Olowalu Water Company, and Olowalu non-potable, because we have all the information and we voted on committee. And I think it would be beneficial because for those systems, we did do we did engage in engineers and water systems experts to do a report for us, and they have also, recommended before the deal closes things that need to be fixed and who would fix what. There's probably there's other assets. I don't think I can share too much because we just went into executive session and there's a lot. It's very complicated and um it's better if I stay away from it because I don't want to slip up and say something that was in executive session. But as far as the
Sure.
ones that we've voted on, it makes sense because while the PUC would need to hear if we're capable of handling a water system, and I believe they would see that we are capable because we handle the county systems, it would allow for us to be able to adjust the water rates, which is something that the current owners of the asset system have not been able to do. They haven't really been able to get hearings with the Public Utilities Commission and with the changing gas prices and things like that, it's not able to allow them to upkeep the system in a reliable way. Um, so the reliability, the ability to set rates as needed, I think are a benefit. Ultimately, I believe the water department would like to make one west side system where the water could go to where it's needed. Like go from Laniapoko all the way out to Honokohau and back, depending on where it's needed. So these are important aspects of it. Um, and Olowalu water, potable and non-potable, as well as Laniapoko water are the simplest, easiest, low-hanging fruit in that one water type of system for West Maui. Maui Land and Pines, Honokohau source assets are a lot more complicated, but not as complicated as the Laniopoko Irrigation Company system. Maui Land and Pine is currently in lawsuit with Tadashi and I, the golf course owners. They're alleging that Maui Land and Pine has not, and Hawaii Water Service has not maintained the system. Because after the 2018 and 2019 storm, they didn't put any applications with the Commission of Water Resource Management to fix the diversions. I think diversion 770 split, or the stream split around diversion 770 of the two development tunnels that add water into Honokohau. There was one landslide, so that water is coming in at a trickle, and this is above the diversion. They have Tadashi and I was able to do a site visit for discovery, and he showed that, in August 2025, before the lawsuit, the Aotaki Weir was not functionable. It behind the uh diversion wall, or the weir wall, had been filled completely with sediment, and Aotaki Gate hadn't been functional. I think that, that worked out in the favor of the taro farmers, however, because they've been having the water that they need at the temperature they need. So it's all a very, not everyone always will be happy with the distribution of water. Um, and I'm not sure if that factored into any of the reasons that Maui Land and Pine didn't put in applications to fix the diversions after the storms, but by now it's been quite a while. I think the lower two diversions that they had, um, they just kind of let them go and didn't fix those either. And so, a lot of people are saying, like, why is there so little bit water available now? Well, there's the inflow stream standards that like set the minimum criteria. One of the development tunnels is landslided. The top diversion 770 has been split around the stream, split around the diversion, and the lower two diversions are non-functional anymore. So that's part of the problems. The duck pond has as a reservoir, they have the village and Duck Pond Reservoir. I believe they relined the village one, I believe, but the Duck Pond one still leaks, and that's an issue. I think that Hawaii Water Service also draws their fire hydrant water from the reservoirs, and so they cannot let it get below us like half, or else the fire hydrant system is in jeopardy. So um if we need a lot more information from the Maui Land and Pine MOU about assessed value, and like besides the uh landslide at Development Tunnel, the Tadashi and I folks went through the tunnel going to the Honokau ditch, and they saw a lot of they showed pictures of a lot of places where it has been kind of patched up, and areas also where the roots are coming through the tunnels and needs to be fixed, and water is leaking out. So that's all going to be discovery in their lawsuit against Maui Land and Pine and Hawaii Water Service. They would like 1.25 million gallons, I think, of our water, our R1 water to go north, which is, they're willing to allow hookups and stub outs along the way and transition that to the county, but the community mostly has requested a R1 be used as a green space buffer around the town. Pre-fire, we had maybe more, close to 5 million gallons a day. Right now, I think we're barely at 3
Yeah.
because of the rebuild. And so initially and through the months that have gone by in speaking with TY management, it's kind of been being refined, the requests and the information over time. Like when we started meeting with them months and months ago, it was like a lot different information, and then like questioning them, like, is that true? Like, and so they're refined, like they used to call the development tunnels diversions. And then when I went back to the community to like try to verify what they were saying, they're like, diversions. And then when I talk to Hawaii Water Service, they're like, no, those are called development tunnels. And I'm like, if we're not using the correct same terminology, then we're not talking about the same things. And so it's definitely an evolution in working with Maui Land and Pine and TY and Hawaii Water Service and like that. So um I'm not able to provide an opinion on that one without more information as to like assessed value and the I guess the nuts and bolts of the shape that it's in. But from what I recently just saw from Tadashi Yanai's people that did a walkthrough on right before the last storm, Lala, it does look like there are areas in disrepair. I don't know how that affects, the purchase price and whatnot. And then also, if you've seen the MOU from MLP, there's a lot of non-cash portions of it. And I think, a lot of us had said we just want to deal with cash. We don't want to
Yeah.
deal with any of these land use entitlements, which aren't like a sure thing or anything. Some of them don't even only have to do with the county. Some deal with the land use commission and other entities. So I don't know how that can be part of the deal, especially too, when you figure half, not half, but some of the council for sure is in not coming back. And so like, how can you only have 2 years really that you're guaranteed. So, um, yeah, I think, the majority of my colleagues, feel more comfortable in dealing with just cash than, other requests that were put
I
forward.
have to thank you. This is the most in-depth analysis of what's going on that I've heard. You know,
Oh,
it's just we've asked this question to various other candidates, and you seem to be have the finger on the pulse. So thank you for your due diligence and willingness to read all the reports and listen to everybody. I'm going to pass you on for the next question to Rita. Rita, got a good one for us?
Yeah, I'm gonna change the subject a little bit here, on to, what would you change about the county's permitting and rebuilding process so residents can rebuild safely and without delay?
I think, in general, it works well, mostly above the highway. Um, it's when you get below the highway, that we're really running into problems. There may be like special circumstances here and there with lot lines, boundary lines, contractors, and things like that. But I think majority of the problem is below the highway in terms of permitting. Um, and it really is really very hard because the way it is, the way it stands right now, there's factions of people that want to rebuild as fast as they can exactly how it was, and factions of people that are concerned with what's below ground, factions of people that are concerned with sea level rise, shoreline erosion, and I guess, for Puamana, one of the problems was that it was kicked over to the state historic preservation division, required a full AIS even to rebuild in their footprints. So then there's conversation about trying to get it back and just require archaeological monitoring, or there's also a process I recently learned about called 100% AIS. As you dig, you have the monitors there and you treat any find not as an inadvertent find. Um, but I think that whatever lessons have been learned in the four-leaf contracting process, where they could turn around a permit within 45 days or less, should be applied to the general permitting process. Um, and I think to just more user education, like it's kind of a known thing that people hire consultants to go through the permitting process. I feel like there should be more general education for simple home build, single families or whatnot, ADUs, that it should be a simpler process that people shouldn't have to hire a consultant for, and the county should have a better education system as to um how a regular person can get through the process. We're not talking about just doing a whole subdivision or a big commercial project, like just for a simple single family home build. I think what was learned or applied through four leaf for the rebuild should be learned and applied through a bigger um, situation. One of the other things that I worked on was factory built home permitting for the burn zone specifically. And I had to make a lot of concessions on that just to get it for the burn zone, because otherwise we wouldn't have had 5 votes. But if you get 5 votes, doesn't have to be a 5 year um trial period. It doesn't have to be only for the burn zone.
Right.
And I feel like we know it works because the state is using it for teacher housing. The state
Hmm.
is using it for their Kauhale concept. So
Hmm.
if we know it works, then why are only we allowed to use it?
Right, right. You said that education would really help the process, would make the process more efficient for most homeowners so that they didn't have to hire consultants. Is that something that the county council can affect some positive change on, or is the responsibility, do you believe, with the planning department?
Mm, Not necessarily the planning department. I guess a lot of people are under the wrong impression that the planning department issues the majority of the permits. But for like building permits and like that, it's Public Works DSA.
Right.
I think that you know, a lot of times people learn by doing, and just picking out a few people and walking through them with the process, like on video, like any good idea, actually walking through them on video, like making aquaponics in your backyard or whatever. But like just taking a few people from different districts or areas or zones, and walking with them on video about the process of how to get permitted and like common errors and stuff like that, doing a little how-to video or something like permitting your single family home on Maui for dummies or whatever,
Right,
and
right.
just
Public
going
service
through it.
announcements, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So is that something that the county council could
I mean, they
set
could,
aside
but it's
budget
better.
for? Or
It's
do you think it needs to be with, as you said, with the more in the league of the public, what is it, public permitting? I'm sorry,
Public Works.
public work.
To me, the county could do something like that, but anytime you're talking about a program where there's implementation and like that, the natural fit is from the administration. So I do try to stick to my role because that's what it's made for. Um, if I have a plethora of ideas. It's just having somebody in the administration side pick it up and run with it.
Right.
And I've, through trial and error, tried to put up programs or like that. It doesn't work that good from the legislative side. Like you can't really legislate a program that good. Like you can fund it, but somebody has to
Has got
implement
to.
it.
Got
And
it.
if it's not you, then they're not gonna necessarily implement it the way you see fit, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. No, you answered the question about what you would change. Education is essential, and also sort of expanding some of the, I guess, short-term permitting rules to allow, some of the, I guess you call, I don't know if those are short-term dwellings or what you call them, but fabricated housing. Allow
Factory built,
factory
it's
built. Yeah.
known as modular. A lot of people get Fab Mac and factory built. Do we have to leave? Oh, I might have to leave. Is it okay, or do we
Okay,
need to?
I'll hand it back to
About 10
Asia.
minutes?
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
we can finish up here quick here in 10 minutes. That's what we're hoping to anyway. I love how that question went because I actually wrote that down that I wanted to ask you after mine. Do you feel limited as a council member? Because what I find when I talk to people about who they're going to vote for in a council, and they'll complain about somebody that's been in office, not you specifically, Tamara, but just in general. And they're like, oh, so and so didn't do XYZ. And I have to remind them that's not within the jurisdiction of that position. Like that's not what a council member does. So I wonder if uh, kind of what I see just as somebody, back in the bushes watching this is that you do a lot of community organizing. You try to get people together who have good ideas and you try to send ideas. But do you honestly, like in your job as a council member, feel limited on what you can actually enact within that position? And
I'd say
how do you deal with that?
more so in the beginning I did feel like that because I didn't know, like the first time I passed a bill, my aide, who was like a long timer, Kathy Cole, who she's like, your first bill, and I'm like, is that a big deal or something? Like I don't know what a bill is, and like she's all like, yeah, that's kind of a big deal, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, whatever. um so like I think it was harder for me at the front, because I did run for mayor in 2014 because I wanted to do stuff. And like this side is mostly paperwork and a lot of meetings and not so much doing stuff hands-on. I mean, that was kind of a little bit of what the part right after the fire that was nice because we're on the same page and we were doing stuff. But now, like, I guess some of us, I've learned more about how to make legislation and like, um, I guess it's just kind of coming at it from a different angle. Like, I don't want the federal government to have my surveillance data or anything, or I don't want some random person using facial recognition if I'm walking at Whalers Village or whatever. So, like, I guess, for this moment in time when I have 2 more years to possibly make legislation to make things bigger, better, or fix stuff or change stuff, I'm just focusing on it that there's 2 more years, and then I don't have to do it ever again.
Thank you. Lucian, do you have a quick question for her too? Oh, you're on mute.
I could change the subject all the way around. I know you folks will be considering a development proposal. You've already, reviewed it somewhat in the Paia area, and living on that side of the island, I've heard a lot of pros and cons. I'm wondering if the council seems to have any appetite to have that project focus more on housing and less on commercial. Have you given that any thought?
Is that the EC Paia one? You will
Yes.
can.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't thought too much about the commercial versus housing, but I'm a little bit excited about the different things that they're open to on the housing side. I know that the attorney Cal Chip Chase wants to do a much higher gap group, like 140 to 230% AMI. One thing I've been talking to the district council member resident, as well as them about is kind of essential worker housing in perpetuity.
Hmm.
Um, because, like if the people that do the essential things, like, people that couldn't stay home during COVID don't have like dedicated housing, then we won't have the people that we need to make society function. And they are in a range of incomes, your pharmacist, your grocery store clerk, your teachers, your landfill crews, all these people that we need to make society function, um, we need to ensure that there's housing preference for them. And so they were open to that kind of stuff. They were open to, um, you know, in perpetuity, that kind of housing. And so I'm really excited to like give it a try, like have essential worker housing, whether it's like, county employees, state employees. I might have to be leaving, but that's the part of the project I'm excited about.
Well, thank you for those insights, and we can continue this conversation. I think I need to pass you back to Asia to wrap things up. Yes.
Yes, thank you so much, Tamara Paltin, for being here, council member, for being here. We really appreciate the thoughtful answers that you provided, and we really look forward to hearing more from you in other forums and debates this election season. So, best to you and to the people who've been watching this. We appreciate you. We appreciate you becoming a more informed voter here in Maui Nui. And we hope that you'll share these videos and that you'll watch the other ones on the website, mauipononetwork.org. We'll see you next time. Aloha.
Aloha, thank you
Aloha.
so much.